Hello everyone, this is Sabrina with Sabrina's Crafty Home Decor, and here today we are going to decorate this cigar box. Right now I am mixing some quick drying spackle with some Waverly Ivory chalk paint, and we're giving the box a good coat of that because it had some pretty deeply engraved emblems on the box. So we needed to cover those with the spackle, and we mixed the paint in with the spackle, so it kind of saves us a step. So we're painting it with color and spackle at the same time. Now you're only going to see me give it one coat, but off camera I give it a second coat, and I sand it down. Once it's dry, I'll sand it down a little bit using a small handheld sander. Just a little. We're only just knocking off any hard edges or, hard lumps in the dried spackle. It doesn't need to be completely smooth, as we're going to be covering it with a napkin anyway. We just don't want any obvious hard lumps in it. So here we are after I've given it a second coat and sanded it down some. And you see my little sander there, that little yellow sander on the side. And now I'm taking this napkin. I picked it up at decoupagenapkins.com. And I'm taking off the two bottom layers of the napkin. So we're just left with that see-through thin top layer. We just want the image. And then I cut the decorative strips off the napkin. And now I'm going to put a good coat of Mod Podge using my fan brush on one side of the box. And then we are going to carefully place this napkin over the Mod Podge and smooth it out using the fan brush. And you have to go really slowly and carefully with this because the napkin is so thin it tears really easily. I did tear it a little bit there, as you could see, but it works for this project, so it wasn't necessary to start over, but I was giving it an aged look anyway, so it actually just added to that aged look. So once I put it on there and then put a top layer of Mod Podge over the napkin to seal it, now I am using that sander to sand off the excess napkin off the edges. And now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to do a layer of Mod Podge and then carefully place our napkin and then do a top coat of Mod Podge to seal it and then sand the edges again, sanding off all that excess napkin. Now this cigar box, my husband found a couple of vintage looking locking mechanisms with keys at a vendor event we were at, and he liked them, so he picked them up. And when we got home, he went through my stash of cigar boxes and found one of the locking mechanisms worked really well on, and he installed the locking mechanism and cut a keyhole into the box, and then handed me the box and said, "Here, do something with it." So this is why we're decorating this cigar box. And unfortunately, I didn't know he was doing that, so I didn't get to video how he installed the mechanism as well as the keyhole, but I can at least show you how we decorated it. And I almost didn't post this video. I've had a couple people comment on some of my other videos asking why the screen was so small. The screen isn't small when I look on my computer or my phone. So I don't know if it's something I'm doing in the videos or if it's they're just not sure how to widen the screen or click the full screen emblem on the YouTube channel. So when they're playing the video, so I tried to zoom in a little bit on the camera here, thinking maybe you guys would be able to see it better. Maybe it would help in, make the image larger, but as you can see now, you can't hardly see what I'm doing. A lot of the project is off camera, but I figured I am explaining what I'm doing as I'm going along, and I think you can see enough to understand what's happening. So I decided to go ahead and post it, but hopefully you can see this well enough. So I also put the napkin over the keyhole, but you see that little nail file I had there. Once the Mod Podge is dry on that end with the keyhole, I poked a hole into the keyhole using that little nail file, and I used it to file off all the excess napkin around the edges of the keyhole. So, and this is the lid. Same process. We're painting it with Mod Podge, and then gently placing the napkin, and then filing off the edges, and then painting a top layer to seal it. Being careful not to have any drips or of Mod Podge on the edges there, because the edges of the lid have to slide into the grooves of the box. So we don't want any lumps of dried Mod Podge in there, preventing it from being able to slide in. So we just have to make sure we keep the edges clean. And this is a piece of parchment paper. Once the Mod Podge is dry, you can use parchment paper to smooth out any bubbles or wrinkles that may be on the napkin. So just be sure your Mod Podge is dry first before you use that parchment paper. So this is finishing wax from Jolie. The color is black, and I picked this up on Amazon. And I'm just using a sponge, and I'm wiping it all over the entire box, but I'm really concentrating heavily on the edges of the lid and the top of the box, as well as the bottom. It's just giving an aged look, but if you like a cleaner look, you can skip this step. It's not necessary. I like the aged look and the rustic look, so it's just what I prefer to do. And here I am pre-drilling my holes for my keyhole cover, and that extra hand was my husband bringing me some screws. Now I'm just checking to make sure that the key and locking mechanism are functioning properly, which they were. Off camera, I painted the inside with a color called Maize. And again, it's Waverly chalk paint that I picked up at Walmart. I also picked up this sheet of felt from Walmart. I think it was like 60 cents a sheet. So it's really really inexpensive. And I used one of my grandkids' coloring pencils to trace the bottom of the box onto the felt to give me just a starting point of where to cut. And now I'm going to give it a second coat because that wood really absorbed that paint really well, so it needed a second coat to cover that wood. So now we're going to paint the bottom of the box with Mod Podge to adhere the felt to the bottom. But I also realized it needed to be trimmed up a little more. And then I also decided that I felt like I needed a thicker coat of Mod Podge than what I initially had in there. So now I'm just going to press down on it to make sure it adheres to the bottom really well. And it's really a stretchy fabric. So I'm pushing that fabric into the sides of the box to make sure that the entire bottom is covered from wall to wall. And now I'm giving the lid a second coat. Now off camera, once I dried the lid and the inside of the box, I added that black finishing wax to the inside of the box, concentrating heavily on the corners as well as the bottom of the lid here. And then I also added Mod Podge to the inside of the box, so as you put things in the box, it doesn't chip the paint off. And I also added Mod Podge to the bottom of the lid. I left the lid out all night and most of the next day before I tried to put the lid back onto the box to be sure that Mod Podge was good and dry and wasn't going to come off as I slid it in and out, and it slides in and out really smoothly now. And then here is our finished project. I think it turned out really nicely. Now I had painted the top edges there of the box. I had painted some yellow on them as well. And then I sanded most of it back off just to give it a kind of a chipped paint look to add to the aged look. So you have a little bit of chipped yellow and a little bit of the black discoloration from the wax, as well as the original ivory that I painted it. And its husband improved. He really likes how it turned out. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.